What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the final episode of Inside the BCFC for 2025 here on the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. I cannot believe we are here, folks. The summer has flown by already, and forget about the summer flying by. We are already into October and the end of the regular season in the British Columbia Football Conference. Man, did the season fly by. But we do have some more football to chat about, as well as look forward to as we have playoff football nearing in the BCFC. Matchups finalized after the Week 11 results. So we have some playoff matchups to talk about here tonight on episode number 12 of Inside the BCFC. But first, before we get to it, of course, folks, if you guys are enjoying all season long, enjoying all of the content here on the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel, please be sure to leave a like on today's video, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video just like this one right here. So, as I mentioned, we have one last Saturday in the BCFC to complete, and the regular season will be over. Nothing really much to play for this weekend other than really pride for some of the teams that won't be in the playoffs the following weekend. But we do have some matchups we will chat about here in week number 12 to end the episode just quickly for whatever maybe reasons. Of course, it is the final week in the BCFC, so that does mean for the unfortunate side of a lot of these guys, it'll be their last football game ever. It could possibly be, for some of these guys, I mean, we were playing playoffs, like, the VI Raiders, who will be playing at home this week, the Kamloops Broncos, the Valley Huskers, the Broncos and Huskers who aren't in the playoffs. This could be, for a lot of those guys, their last football game ever. As I mentioned, for the Raiders, they're going to be playing playoffs. So for a lot of these guys, it'll be their last ever home game in Nanaimo. So definitely a bittersweet one when talking about that, and definitely having experience playing some of those games. And you remember those feelings for forever, right? Of the last time you ever strapped on pads, the last time you ever played in a tackle football game. So definitely something to monitor throughout the weekend, and definitely got to give some of those guys their shoutouts and kudos throughout the weekend. I know I will, being on the broadcast this weekend for the VI Raiders Langley Rams game, I will be making sure that all those fifth-year guys on both sides will definitely be feeling special after that one, because for the Rams, that's the last one for this season. I believe it's the first time the Langley Rams will not be in the playoffs since the 80s. I don't want to give a false date, but I believe it was the late 80s the last time the Langley Rams missed the playoffs. 1988, I want to say. Just an incredible run of consistency, of competitiveness, and that is actually going to come to an end this season. So, as I mentioned, with the playoff matches being set already in the BCFC, we can get to those right now, or I guess we can quickly actually go over last week's results to set up the playoff matchups first. So last week, week number 11, we had the West Shore Rebels getting their 7th victory and securing a home playoff game, and they did so with a 62-0 victory over the Langley Rams at home, which was actually their last game of the regular season, as they are on a bye week this week. So we'll see what comes of the bye week for for the West Shore Rebels, as some people might think, they could get a little bit rusty, or maybe the week off kind of doesn't allow them to be as crisp to start the playoffs. I kind of lean towards the other way, where I think they'll be able to rest. They'll be able to get as close to as healthy as possible going into the playoffs. Hopefully some guys like Gio Lanuzzi, Carter Williams getting back up to 100%. A few guys that they could add to the lineup to help them on their playoff run this year. So the next one, which was actually, before we get into the biggest one, because let's get into the two that really didn't mean too much, but Prince George also secured their 3rd seed, beating the Kamloops Broncos by a score of 74-0. So 2 pretty lopsided scores, and then the one that was, all eyes on this game going into this one for any BCFC fan or anybody that was just curious of the playoff picture. Of course, anybody that was in Langley wanting to pay attention as well as the out-of-town scoreboards to see who was going to take home this one and essentially punch their ticket to the 2025 playoffs. And that's just what the Vancouver Island Raiders did with a 27-13 victory over the Valley Huskers over in Chilliwack. I was lucky enough to make the trip over from the island, take in this one live in person, was able to be down on the field. Shout out to the BCFC and Tyler McLaren. Actually, speaking of the BCFC and Tyler McLaren, big shout out to Tyler even more for hooking us up. As you guys can see, wearing a little bit of the new merch from the BCFC that we've gotten this season with partnering with them, working for the conference. It's been a ton of fun, not only being on the broadcast for all the Raiders home games this season, but giving you guys content on a weekly basis to consume. And it's been a ton of fun to cover the conference from a whole, obviously with my ties to the Raiders and knowing them, inside and out. It's been nice to kind of get a better grip and a better picture, better idea of the conference, as I mentioned, from a whole. So once again, big shout out to Tyler. Tyler, I'm going to need maybe a pullover hoodie if you're listening for the future for some playoff games that I'm hoping to make the trip to at least for now, definitely the Cullen Cup and potentially the Canadian Bowl or the Canadian National Semifinals. We'll see if we'll be able to make it happen for the first round of the BCFC playoffs or not. But hoping to be on the road. If I am, wouldn't mind sporting a BCFC pullover hoodie, as it's definitely starting to get cold out. And with the quarter zip, it keeps the neck warm, but it definitely doesn't keep the ears and the head warm. So to get back on track, though, as I mentioned, I was able to watch this one in person from Chilliwack at Exhibition Stadium, and it was a pretty good atmosphere. The grandstands there in Chilliwack were pretty filled for the most part, but there also was a Chilliwack Chiefs game going on in the BCHL right next door. So it made for a pretty big, a pretty busy venue and parking lot. And then as well, they had a fair or kind of for people that are in Nanaimo or on Vancouver Island, kind of more familiar with like the VIX. And it looked like they had some, the zipper and the Ferris wheel and the big chain swing and whatnot going on in the background. I was able to get a couple of cool shots of that going on in the background, which was pretty cool. Just set up a nice backdrop from Exhibition Stadium, as I mentioned. So that was the big one, as the VI Raiders punched their ticket back in the playoffs once again. The Valley Huskers are going to fall short and sit in 5th place when seasons end, no matter what happens this upcoming weekend in their matchup versus Prince George. Tough one for Valley. I chatted about this for a majority of the year, especially on our broadcast when the Raiders took on the Valley Huskers here in Nanaimo. This team was a much better team than their record indicated to start the season of 1-3, 1-4, whatever it may be. They continued to fight and claw towards, they were hoping to get into the playoffs, and they're going to ultimately fall what looks to be one game short of that mark. So the Valley Huskers, when talking about them, we're gonna come talk a little bit with them a little bit more. But to, I guess, go the other way of what we're going to talk about in a little bit here, defensively, definitely got to hold their heads high. They fought for the majority of the season, especially with defensive corner James Mora leading the way. But, you could argue had one of the better linebacking cores, not only in the BCFC, but in the country. These guys like Jack Winey, Andy Ofosuhini, Raiden Maston playing Sam this year, being a phenomenal playmaker, being able to transition from, his defensive back spot. It's definitely going to be a disappointing one. I know I kind of overheard Andy on the sideline being down there, and, the disappointment in his voice of, not being able to make the playoffs in his 5th and final year. And it'll be only one more week and one more game that he could potentially have in his career. So it's definitely, as I mentioned, a dagger in the heart. It's a devastating one for a lot of these guys that never play football again. So to go to my cap to that Valley Huskers defense, as they battled all year, they gave their team the best opportunity to win on a weekly basis. But unfortunately, that is how the cookie crumbles in this one. So let's get into the playoff matchups quickly before we're going to get kind of a look back into the regular season. Some of the, the standout players, standout performances, that kind of thing to kind of cap off today's episode. Of course, we'll chat a little bit about this upcoming week, but not too much, if we're being quite honest. So let's start with the 1 versus 4 matchup, which is going to be the first matchup of the semi-final weekend in the BCFC, which will see the Vancouver Island Raiders traveling up to the Okanagan Sun for a 1 p.m. kickoff. That is 1 p.m. Pacific for anybody that's tuning in outside the Pacific Standard Time Zone. 1 p.m. kickoff from the Apple Bowl up in Kelowna. And this, of course, is is on Saturday, October 11th. Once again, at 1 p.m. Pacific time, the Vancouver Island Raiders and Okanagan Sun will kick off. This is going to be a, one that I'm kind of, battling back and forth whether or not to make the trip up there or not. Actually, this may be a good time for you guys. As I just said, I've been able to make the trip over to two Raiders road games 3 weeks ago now, or maybe even a month ago now, when they took on the Langley Rams, and then this past weekend when they took on the Valley Huskers, was able to be there, get some content live from the field. I'm curious what the fans would like. Would you guys like to see, a presence from CFF and the BCFC live from the Apple Bowl up in Kelowna for the first round of the playoffs, or would you guys like to see a presence from the PG and West Shore game down in Langford at the Starlight Stadium for the first round? As I mentioned, I'll definitely be up. We'll see what happens on any given Saturday, but most likely up in the Apple Bowl for the Cullen Cup in a few weeks' time. But we'll see. We'll see what the folks would like to have a presence from first and foremost. But when talking about this game, specifically the Raiders taking on the Sun, it's going to be a very tall task for anybody, let alone the number 4 seed, to go into Kelowna, go up to the Apple Bowl, long road trip, likely for both, island teams or a Prince George team, to go on the road and to try to walk in there and to take on the Okanagan Sun, reigning, defending Cullen Cup champs already from this in 2024, where they feel like they have a lot of unfinished business to, take care of this season. And I feel like they're really not wanting to let anybody step in their way, right? And I feel like they're kind of on a path to fulfill the shortcomings. I guess they weren't able to capture that Canadian Bowl last season, is what I'm trying to say here, as I'm fumbling over my words, folks. But the Raiders defensively, maybe that's the recipe, right? With a coach like Sean Rabsky, and you get a game plan where it's a 14-10 type of game, or 14-11, whatever it may be, a low scoring type of game, some turnovers, as we saw the recipe to kind of sticking in the game with the Okanagan Sun. We saw it week number maybe 3, 4, whatever it may be, down in Langford versus the West Shore Rebels, turning the football over. I believe it was 5 or 6 turnovers in the first half alone. West Shore was able to jump out to a tremendous lead, but even that wasn't enough. And the Okanagan Sun came back to win a thriller, 43-39 or something like that, early on in the season, which just shows how good of a team they are, not only offensively, defensively, and very resilient, and they're battle tested in all 3 phases. Not even offensively, defensively. You got to include special teams in there as well, with Liam Atwood and Jordan Falconer returning the ball now as well. Special teams wise has started to look, all cylinders are going for the Okanagan Sun. So we will talk about the playoffs, though, folks. To slightly transition into what you guys will see. Actually, no, we're going to leave that for the end of the episode. Actually, the next game on semifinal Saturday will be the number 3 seed Prince George Kodiaks going down to Langford to take on the West Shore Rebels at Starlight Stadium for a 3 p.m. kickoff. But big shout out, big kudos, snaps, tip my cap, whatever you want to say, to the Prince George Kodiaks for qualifying for the playoffs for the first time in a franchise history. Love to see it. Jamie Borum leading the squad in the right direction, getting them into the dance. In their 4th season of existence, a great milestone for the program, and hopefully they're able to, what better way to celebrate than punching their ticket to the Cullen Cup championship, to have an opportunity to maybe knock off an Okanagan Sun to be the champs coming out of BC. Who knows what could happen, but the Prince George Kodiaks are a team not to be sleeping on for sure, especially when it comes to a 2-3 matchup. These 2 teams are close for a reason in the standings, and it will be one to keep a close eye on. This is kind of one that I honestly, as a fan of the BCFC, of the league as a whole, really kind of want to take in, to be honest, because I think this is going to be a close game. West Shore is West Shore, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. And we've talked about them quite a bit all season. And I'm sure people that have tuned into this, show and our content on a regular basis know how high I am on, Gavin Sessions, Zion Brown, and that offense, Tyrell Hoffman, you name it. But do not sleep on this Prince George Kodiaks team. I think they're doing some good stuff. They're also a veteran club with a lot of third and fourth and fifth year guys that are ready for the moment to seize this opportunity. And who knows what could happen in a playoff game. So before we get into a look back at the regular season, and then we'll get out of here, folks, I want to mention that we are going to be doing a playoff preview for each of the games in the playoffs in the BCFC, and of course in the CGFL semifinal as well. So we will have, 2 videos to start, and then when we get into the Cullen Cup, we'll have 1 video. So to start in the semifinals, we'll have a video with each of the head coaches from each of the teams in the matchup. So for the matchup between the Okanagan Sun and Vancouver Island Raiders, I'll be joined by Coach Arabsky as well as Coach Miller. And then after that, we will post a separate video. We are joined by Coach Borum and Coach Brian down in Victoria to chat about each of their games. And that'll be about a 30, 40-minute video. Will be uploaded to you guys next week to enjoy, to get ready for the matchup. And I think it should be a good way for fans to build excitement, to get an idea of maybe for some teams that haven't been tuning into some games. Say, if you're a West Shore fan, you want to get an idea of the Prince George Kodiaks a little bit, or if you're a Raiders fan, you want to get an idea of this Okanagan Sun this season, to kind of get an idea of the opposite team and who you're playing with and how you might match up with said team. So stay tuned for that, as well as we have some other content coming out next week to kind of build that engagement, that excitement for the playoffs, and moving forward to kind of get the engagement going, as well as BCFC TV. I think it'll be, make sure that you guys are following us on our social media platforms, not only on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, but of course we are also on Twitter at _CF Fanatics as well. So let's get into a look back at some moments and some shout-outs, some standouts, standout players' performances, as I mentioned, throughout the regular season. And we have to start with, obviously, defense wins championships, but offense sells tickets, is exciting. We have to start with arguably the most exciting, tandem, whatever you want to call them, quarterback-receiver duo in Zion Brown and Gavin Session. Got to start with Zion Brown first, as he's coming off a monstrous week number 11 game that put him into the record books. He finished with 14 receptions, 160 yards, and folks, 5 total receiving touchdowns thrown from one Gavin Session, as he had himself a pretty modest, only 25 of 31, 426, and 6 tutties. 0 interceptions last week to just cement themselves as, in my opinion, the best quarterback receiver duo in the BCFC. And I think you could very much argue in the CGFL as a whole. As you look at, Gavin Session as a passer, 2,800 yards passing, won't be able to add to that much, or won't be able to add to that at all anymore. 67 completion percentage, just behind Liam Kroger at 68. And then the 28-9 touchdown to interception ratio from Gavin Session, just under 30 touchdown passes this season. Big time kudos, big time snaps, as I mentioned, whatever you want to give the boys for that one. For my money, Gavin Session is going to be the all-star QB coming out of the BCFC, but you can't sleep on guys like Liam Kroger, as Liam Kroger's in there as well. 20-3 touchdown interception ratio, 2,400 yards. So he could catch him, and then 68 completion percentage as well for Liam Kroger. Can't sleep on him. He's done a fabulous job this season, getting his Okanagan Sun in the right spots and putting up points on the board. So speaking about the Okanagan Sun, Liam Kroger, obviously, first and foremost, got to give him his love and flowers, but the straw that stirs the drink offensively for that team, and obviously kind of built the hype. That was the hype kind of building into the offseason was, the addition of one Jaron Hardesty, running back, formerly of the West Shore Rebels, then the University of York, comes to the Okanagan Sun in the offseason, and he is able to crack the 1,000-yard mark with 1,025 rushing yards so far this season. Is going to be able to maybe build on that. We'll see how much he plays realistically this upcoming Saturday. I'm curious to even see if he does play or maybe he doesn't dress, but he does have 164 touches, 9 rushing touchdowns, and good for a 6 yards per carry average this season. And then, of course, when talking about the Okanagan Sun, how could you not mention Jaquintus Summers and Jarvion Williams, the scariest quarterback nightmares, for opposing offenses, most definitely the scariest edge rushers coming off the edge on the same team. When you look at Jaquintus Summers now up to 12 sacks on the season, Jarvion Williams with 10, 2 defensive linemen with double-digit sacks and going to have an opportunity to pad those sacks this upcoming week. But those could be also 2 other guys that could not see this field against a Kamloops Broncos team, which 9-0 versus 0-9, not really playing for much. Do you really risk it versus the Kamloops Broncos and in a matchup in week number 12 when wanting to keep them healthy for the long playoff run? We'll see what happens, but who knows what could be taking place up there in Kamloops. I believe this game is, yes, in Kamloops. But have to give them a shout out because they've been absolutely terrorizing opposing quarterbacks all season long. Got to give tackle leader when talking about the defensive side of the ball, Caden Crow, credit because he's been the tackle leader for almost start to finish, if I'm not mistaken. Got out to a very big lead in the middle part of the season. Kind of surrendered it now, and it's possibly, I don't know if I want to say in jeopardy, but sitting at 44 tackles now, Caden Crow. Andy Officini, 39, only 5 less, and then Max Shippen with the VI Raiders at 7 less with 37. It'll be interesting to see can Caden hold on to that as he is playing as well. And I will imagine that he will add to his totals because that guy is everywhere. When you turn on a Prince George game, number 55 is coming onto your screen quite often, and you're noticing him a lot. When talking about, other assets or other, other difference makers, other standout players, it's hard to really single out or kind of pick out a few other guys from the Prince George Kodiaks because they are just truly, they do it by, committee. They do it with a total team effort, playing 3 phase football, where you look at a guy like Sawyer Thiessen, doesn't maybe put the ball in harm's way, doesn't push it downfield too much, takes care of the football, makes sure his team's able to put up points. If they're not able to get it with touchdowns, with field goals, with a guy like Brady Harper, the Harpoon, coming into the season, the most reliable kicker in the BCFC. He's had his kind of ups and downs. Maybe he hasn't had the best season up to his standards, but a guy that is definitely reliable in many situations and kind of adds to that 3 phases. When you look at guys like, JJ Abowaje and JJ, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correct. And if I am butchering it, my apologies, but guys up front that really kind of in tandem rush the passer with their coverage with their pass rush, and being able to have guys at all 3 levels to trust them that they're going to do their job. Other guys are going to do their job as well. When you look at the receiving core, Carson Briere, Sturgis, Noah Lank, you name it, those guys that kind of step up on a weekly basis are massive for the Prince George Kodiaks. Gavin Halverson, one of the more underrated backs in the conference for sure. So they do it with a total team effort, and you got to give them their credit for sure. When it comes to the VI Raiders next, Tanai Wisdom, right up there, potentially with being the sack king of the 2025 season in the BCFC. Jaquintus at 12, Tanai Wisdom now with 11 sacks after his 4-sack performance. And how could I forget the BI Raiders coming off a historic performance, tied for 4th best in a single game of all time, 10 sacks as a team last week with the Valley Huskers, where Tanai Wisdom had 4. Sterling Henry, who was Defensive Player of the Week in the BCFC, had 3.5. Max Shippen had himself 1, and Quantarius Lusk, was the other one with 1.5 to make it a total of 10, which was tied for 4th best in a single game in the CJFL history. Last team to do it was 2015 Okanagan Sun, and then I believe it was in the 80s for the last time that this happened. Excuse me. Or I guess that is correct. The last time that had happened, the 10 sacks was, I believe, in the 80s. But the last time, the record of 15, which was the best all time in a single game, was held back in the 80s. Is what I'm trying to get out here, folks. But you know, Panay, in a sense, almost it's unfortunate for them because losing Waitman to a season-ending injury, he was kind of paired with Tanai in being the leaders of the defense and kind of being the guys that are game changers. And Waitman, as I said, losing him to a season-ending injury, kind of leaving this burden to Tanai in a bit to lead this strong unit. Don't get me wrong, folks; they have multiple bodies. When even talking about the guys that were involved in sacks, Lusk, Henry, Shipham, all very talented guys. When you also look at the secondary with guys like Toscano, AB and Aiden Bytel, Kaya Saunders, you look at the linebacking core, with guys like Shipham, Henry, Finstad, they're up there with the Huskers and the Sun linebacking core for being best in the country. So total team effort as well from the Raiders defense as well, but tonight's kind of the leader in the numbers standpoint. But got to give my man Rondé and Parker as well shout outs, the two Barsby boys, the two Harewood kids, for being basically top 5 in rushing and receiving categories all season long. I think pending some other circumstances, I think Parker would have had himself a bigger season. Rondé top 5 in rushing, and Rondé adding a more physical aspect to his game. I've really enjoyed watching Rondé Lau run this season. And then lastly, I think you got to give a shout out to arguably the best 1-2 punch, the best quarterback, running back, tandem, whatever you want to call it, up in the Valley, in my opinion, in Keyshawn Dorsey and Jawad Harb. Being able to get a firsthand watch them last week, it is a absolute, it's a nightmare probably game planning to want to shut them down. As Dorsey is a very elusive quarterback. Harb is arguably the best back in the BCFC. I think Jaron, rightfully so, is the best back, but he is next in that conversation, Jawad Harb, in my opinion. A very fun back to watch. Can do really all things you want him to do. Running between the tackles, has a little bit of, I think, decisive speed to his game, can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. And a very complete back, in my opinion, is Jawad Harb. So, and then in addition of Keyshawn Dorsey, obviously, maybe I think for Valley fans or Valley supporters, you'd like to see him be maybe a little bit more consistent as a passer, but as a runner, he is a very dynamic threat. And in my opinion, I think these two guys, 1-2 punch coming out of the backfield, best in the BCFC. And you could definitely include, guys like a Gavin Session and Carter Williams, or even a Rondé Lyle and Parker Wills. Of course, Bruce Jones, Reggie Ellie, Marcus Christos, Okanagan Sun backup quarterback with Jaron Hardesty. Whatever tandem you want to put up against them, it's going to be hard to kind of argue them against Keyshawn Dorsey and Jawad Harb, in my opinion. Anyways, with watching a lot of BCFC football this season, this is the most BCFC football from a conference perspective I've watched in my life. Being a Raiders fan basically from an early age, from 08, 09-ish onwards, and then playing for the Raiders from 2017 to 2019. For a majority of my BCFC days watching, it's been the Raiders, and that's been it. So it's been kind of fun watching this year. But lastly, let's get into the matchups so you guys can see them down below before we get out of here. And that is the 2-6-1 Langley Rams traveling over to Nanaimo, take on the 4-4 the 4-4-1 VI Raiders, and that's a 2:30 kickoff. I will be on the broadcast once again as the color commentator. Make sure to check out that game if you guys are unable to make it over to NDSSQ Stadium over in Nanaimo. Check out BCFC TV, and you guys will enjoy Noah and I calling the game for one last time in 2025. And then the Okanagan Sun at 9-0 travel to take on the Kamloops Broncos at 0-9. The Prince George Kodiaks at 5-3-1 take on the Valley Huskers, who are 3-5-1 at 7 o'clock. That Okanagan Sun, Kamloops Broncos is 6 o'clock kickoff. And for all three matchups, we're praying for everybody to stay healthy and wishing nothing but the best for all the fifth years that are taking part in the game, and wishing them the best in their future endeavors and in life going forward. As I said, for some of these guys, they will be able to lucky enough to go on and get university opportunities or whatever it may be in the AFL and the Alberta Football League and men's league opportunities, because I know there's a few other opportunities out there, and even in Europe, whatnot. But for say 95% of these guys, they'll never play tackle football again, which is it's a tough one. Having experience, as I said, I think about that quite often as my last game. My last game being in Starlight Stadium down there in Victoria against the West Shore Rebels, and us my VI Raiders coming out on the short end of the stick in a semifinal game back in 2019. So definitely a bummer, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, as I said. So it is getting late, folks. So I want to kind of get out of here and try to get through the week and then get into the busy playoff run where we will have a lot of content coming at you guys left, right, and center. Lastly, before we get out of here, I wanted to mention that the winner of the BCFC this year will be hosting the winner of the OFC, so there's no confusion. So the winner of the Ontario Football Conference will be coming out to BC to take on the winner of the BC Football Conference. The winner of that game will take on the winner of the PFC for the Canadian Bowl and the right to call themselves national champions of 2025. So we're getting here. We're getting there, folks. Playoff time is right around the corner. It is almost win or go home time in the CJFL. I cannot wait to cover it. I cannot wait to be watching the games on a weekly basis. One last time, folks, before we get out of here, if you guys are enjoying all the content on the channel, please be sure to leave a like on today's video, comment down below on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live or upload a video like this one. And of course, you guys can find us on our social media platforms at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, as well as at _CF Fanatics on Twitter. So I believe that is all our T's crossed, I's dotted. We will be back, but not for Inside the BCFC for the remainder of the season. So that is it for season 1 of Inside the BCFC, folks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. As I mentioned, please be sure to comment down below. Let us know that you guys would like to see this not only next season, but in the off season, where we can get some engagement, excitement going for the conference, have some guests, you name it. And as I said, just build that engagement, build that excitement throughout the off season, because football season truly never dies. There's still a lot of going on when it comes to recruitings, workouts, OTAs, drama, who's going where, who's going there, who's being released, who's not. So there's still a ton of stuff to be chatting about during the off season. So we'd love to do a show, blow up the BCFC's Instagram account, let them know that you guys are enjoying. But as far as Inside the BCFC, folks, we will see you guys most likely in 2026. We've had a ton of fun in our first season of Inside the BCFC, but how you guys can help us and going forward, supporting us, as I mentioned, is just liking the videos, getting them into more algorithms, following us on our social media platforms, and of course, like our friend Pat McAfee likes to say, be a friend, tell a friend about all the stuff that we got going on here at the Canadian Football Fanatics. And until next time, we will catch you guys on the next one.